Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is FAZIRAH binti JAMALUDIN and I am from AS11432. So in this precious moment, my group members and I will talk about the food that has been processed through fermentation, specifically focused on Tapai Pulut Sarimah. Tapai Pulut Sarimah, with the motto of try Tapai Pulut Sarimah and you will become a true lover, is located at Kampus Air Hitam Pantai Tanjung Bidara, Tasik Tanah Melaka. Based on the official website, this is the first company that produced tapai commercially from 1998, built by Encik Aziz and Puan Sarimah. Tapai is a type of fermented rice that has a sweet and sour alcoholic taste, which made from various substrates such as cassava tubers, cooked rice, and cooked glutinous rice and mixed with powdered ragi. Tapai refers to both alcoholic paste and alcoholic beverage derived from it, which has a sweet and sour taste. It can be eaten as is or as ingredients for traditional recipes or fermented further to make rice wine. Tapai pulut is traditionally made with glutinous rice or Oryza sativa glutinosa in the scientific name, but can also be made from a variety of carbohydrate sources like cassava and potatoes. Have you heard about fermentation? Fermentation is a process which is one of the preservation methods for food that involve a chemical reaction induced by microorganisms or enzymes that split the complex organic compounds into relatively small substances which produces carbon dioxide. So, fermented foods are prepared by microbial action on one or more components under relatively controlled conditions that cause changes in their physical, biochemical, and nutritious qualities. People apply fermentation to make products such as wine, bread, cheese, and beer long before the biochemical process was understood. In 1850 and 1860, Louis Pasteur became the first zymergist or scientist to study fermentation when he demonstrated fermentation was caused by the living cells. Pasteur was unsuccessful in his first attempts to extract the enzyme responsible for fermentation from the yeast cells, but in 1897, a German chemist named Edward Buckner ground this extracted fruit from them and found the liquid could ferment a sugar solution. Basically, there are two categories of fermented food products, which are: the first one is from bacterial fermentation, for example like natto from Japan, and second is fungal fermentation, which is tapai. So, the general process of fermentation begins with the beneficial microbes break down sugars and starches to alcohols and acids to make food more nutritious and can store for a long period without spoiling. Fermented foods have numerous advantages over the raw materials from which they are made, not only in improved flavor and texture, appearance and aroma, but also increase in the storage life of foods. One of the great advantages of fermented foods is to improve digestive health, which means rich in probiotics. The probiotics produce able to balance of friendly bacteria and alleviate some digestive problems. Other than that, probiotic will lessen the severity of diarrhea, bloating, gas, and constipation. The second one is able to make food easier to digest by humans. It is because fermentation process helps to break down nutrients in food, making them easier to digest than their unfermented counterparts. So, the lactose. For example, lactose is broken down to simpler sugar like glucose and galactose. So, the lactose intolerant person is fine eating fermented dairy like kefir and yogurt. Last but not least, fermented food will contribute to our mental health too. This because the probiotic strains like Lactobacillus helveticus and Bifidobacterium longum can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Hidayah Syuhada binti Muhammad RAHIMI. I am from AS 1143C2. Today, I would like to present about the objective for our case study. There are three objectives, which is the first one is to study fermentation food product. The second, to determine manufacturing process of fermentation food, and third is to identify the problem and a solution for fermentation food process.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Puteri OTHMAN and I will present about the manufacturing process of tapai. But first of all, we must recap back about what tapai actually is. So the first thing first is tapai is actually a sweet or sour alcoholic base, and that can be also used as directly as a food in traditional recipes. So this tapai is actually made of many carbohydrate sources such as cassava, white rice, and also glutinous rice. So the fermentation process in making this tapai is actually performed by a variety type of molds, including Aspergillus oryzae, Rhizophus oryzae, Amylomyces roxy or mucor species, and yeast, including Saccharomyces cerevisiae and Saccharomyces fibulliger, Endomycopsis burtoni, and others, along with bacteria. Tapai is also used to make alcoholic beverages. So tapai is made by inoculating carbohydrate sauce with the required microorganism and starter culture. This culture has different names in different regions based on where they are being made. So for Malaysia and Indonesia, we call them as ragi tapai or also yeast. This culture can be naturally captured from the wild by mixing rice flour with ground spices including garlic, pepper, chili, and cinnamon, and also cane sugar or coconut water, slices of ginger and ginger extract, and water to make dough. The dough is pressed into round cakes about 3 cm across or 1 cm thick, and left to incubate on trays with banana leaves under and over them for 2 days, 3 days. They are then dried, stored, and ready for their next. So basically, the most basic types of tapai is actually the glutinous rice tapai. So the manufacturing process of this glutinous rice tapai actually requires 3 simple ingredients, which is the glutinous rice itself, but it must be the sticky one. And we also need the tapai starter, which is the ragi yeast, and also sugar. So the process of processing the tapai is first of all, we must soak the rice in water for overnight. So the amount of water needed is based on the amount of the rice you use. So for the next step is we have to steam the soaked rice for 45 minutes. But be careful, in this step we have to be a little careful because we don't want the rice to be too hot because the heat can damage the starter culture in this step. So the next step is to sprinkle the tapai starter on the rice and mix it with the clean spoon for a minute to distribute it evenly. We have to mix the starter and the rice well to reduce the risk of spoilage and improve the amount of time needed for fermentation process starting. So the next step is to mix the sugar with water. So and then we have to pack the rice in a layer into jars and sprinkle each layers with some sugar water to help start the fermentation process. And the next step is to let them ferment for 2 to 4 days. After 2 days, you will see likely a bit of liquid in the bottom of the jar, and the order of the rice will change to the distinctive tapai smell. At this point, the fermentation process is complete, but the taste of the tapai will improve if kept in the refrigerator in few days. The liquid which collects at the bottom of the container is actually a rice wine, or people also call them as bram. It normally has a very low alcohol content, but after only a few days it will fermented further. The alcohol content will increase.
Hai, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is NURSHARAH AUNI binti ZAKARIA and I am from AS 114 3C2. So today I am going to explain to you guys about some tips of fermentation process. First, establish your starter culture. Starter culture is already rich with some beneficial microorganisms. So when it added, it will multiply rapidly and jumpstart to the fermentation process. Tips number 2 is keep your equipment. It is because to prevent the bad bacteria from leaching onto your ferment. And tips number 3 is avoid exposure, because when the food is exposed to the air, it will prevent proper fermentation from taking place and increase the risk of spoilage and food poisoning. So tips number 4 goes to storage management. It is to avoid air contamination by keeping the fermented product in a sealable storage container. It is because storage container have a valve to vent carbon dioxide gas released during the fermentation. Next is fermentation management. By controlling the temperature of the environment that will affect the outcomes. Microbes will work well when the environment is warm or room temperature, but the ideal temperature depends upon the types of microbes and what we fermenting. Altering the temperature will impact the process greatly. Moving the product to a cooler environment will allow the rate of fermentation and halt it completely. Heating a fermented will just kill the essential microbes. Fermenting at home should follow recipe closely for safety purpose. For example, incorrect temperature, fermentation times, or unsterile equipment can cause the food to spoil, which is unsafe to eat. The threat of botulism contamination, specifically fermenting at home. In 2001, a botulism outbreak in Alaskan village triggered 13 individuals to be hospitalized, with among of them are suffering a heart attack and one of them requiring a tracheostomy. This incident is caused by consuming fermented beaver tail and paw, which link with the development of gastric cancer. So regarding to our topic, Tapai Sarimah company. So we discovered that have some buyers from Tapai Sarimah. They buy tapai today and next 2 days the tapai was spoiled. And then we found that the buyer himself did not handle the tapai with a good care, which is she put the tapai in a open area on the table, or the tapai may be affected to the bad bacteria that is can spoil the tapai itself, right? So I think that's all from me. Thank you.
In conclusion, tapai is not the only fermented food which have been through the fermentation process. We have another examples like tempeh, which made from fermented soybeans that have been pressed into a compact. Soy protein helps humans in reduce certain risk factors for heart diseases. Over 40 studies stated that whenever people consuming 25 grams of soy protein every day for 6 weeks, it will lead to a 3.2% decrease in LDL, or known as bad cholesterol, and 2.8% decrease in total cholesterol. Then we have kimchi, which is the popular Korean side dish that is usually made from fermented cabbage or other fermented vegetables like radishes. Kimchi able for lowering cholesterol and reducing insulin resistance. Last but not least, we have the yogurt too. It is because the lactobacilli bacteria convert the lactose sugar in milk into glucose and galactose, which is broken down further to lactic acid, which gives the sour taste. Live bacteria remain in the yogurt and provide a contribution valuable to our gut microflora. Fermented food offers tremendous potential for promoting health, improving nutrition, and reducing the risk of various diseases. Basically, there are 8 reasons considered as useful for fermented foods: improve digestion, restore the proper balance of bacteria in the gut. Raw fermented foods are rich in enzymes, increase the vitamin content, helps us to absorb the nutrients we are consuming, help to preserve it from a longer period, inexpensive, and increases the flavor of the food. While eating fermented foods certainly has some disadvantages, this does not mean you have to shy away from it. As they say, always eat a balanced diet and everything should be in moderation. As my last word is, the technology needs to be improved through research to advance its potential for food safety and nutritional value. Technology is used to value to such products, including increased shelf life, flavor, and appealing packaging and labeling. With that, that's all from our video presentation, which means our title is Fermentation Product that specifically focus on Tapai food products. With that, thank you for listening.